Good afternoon and welcome to Happy Hour with the Maestro. This is the first in a series of fun broadcasts where you can just unwind with the Maestro, have a beverage of your choice, and watch some really interesting people that we're going to meet. So as you can see, I'm at the North Charleston Performing Arts Center. Well, not really. It's a virtual background, but it's there so that you all know that we can't wait to get back to the pack and perform for our friends from the North Charleston area as we have done for years and years and years. So there's going to be a featured beverage for each one of these, and you're welcome to buy it if you want to try that beverage. There will be wines, beers, whatever, non-alcoholic drinks. So today we're going to be featuring a wine from California. I'm going to let you see it. It's kind of fun because it disappears in the virtual background. It's very interesting, isn't it? We'll give it a sip and see what it's like. It just melted right into the curtain, didn't it? This one is called Big House White. Okay, this is a wine that is in a box, believe it or not. So the nice thing about this is it will appeal to wine snobs and non-wine snobs because it's in a box, and it costs less than 20 bucks a bottle, and you actually get 4 bottles in a box. So it comes out to about $5 a bottle, which is pretty darn cheap. Now, what's interesting about this wine is it has many different grapes in the blend. It has a very unusual grape called Malvasia Bianca. It also has some more well-known grapes, Gewürztraminer, Pinot Grigio, and Albarino. So anyway, it's a very delightful summertime wine. And again, it will appeal to wine lovers, wine snobs, and definitely to people who are not wine snobs. Well, we're going to have several really, really interesting guests. And maybe the most interesting of all the guests that we're going to have is our guest for our first show. None other than the one and only executive director and principal flutist of the North Charleston Pops, who is a performer with many orchestras around our area, including the Hilton Head Symphony and also the Charleston Symphony. Former principal flautist or flutist, whichever way you would like to say it, of Orchestra Kentucky in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So let's meet some really interesting people. And today it's Tacey Edwards. Let's say hi to Tacey Edwards. There she is.
Hi, Nick.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you with us. Oh, I love the background. Nice sign.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and I'm excited about your Happy Hour series. Thank you for inviting me to be your first guest.
Of course. It's going to be a blast to talk. And one of the things I thought would be really fun for our visitors and our concert goers and also the people that love the Pops is they always ask, well, how did the Pops start?
That is a very interesting story, and I still find it unbelievable. Going back to the 1990s, I was the person who contracted musicians for the Coliseum and North Charleston Performing Arts Center when they had Broadway shows or they had big name singers like Elton John, for example, or Rod Stewart that needed music behind them.
Right.
At the 40th anniversary of the city of North Charleston, the mayor through the Coliseum asked me if I would book an orchestra because they wanted to hire Earth, Wind, and Fire as a gift to the city for the 40th anniversary celebration. And of course I said yes, and then the orchestra was hired, and then the mayor wanted to have a press conference at the Performing Arts Center, and so I was there for the press conference and waiting for him to come in. And as he came through the door and greeted me, I said, Mayor Summy, how would you like to have a year-round Pops orchestra for the city of North Charleston? And he loved the idea, and he started the press conference 3 minutes later, and he announced to the press about the Earth, Wind, and Fire concert, and he said, and we have a new orchestra in North Charleston called the North Charleston Pops, and they're going to make their debut with Earth, Wind, and Fire in the Coliseum. So that's basically how we started. But I have to back up a little bit. How I had the idea to ask the mayor this is in the previous year, we had done a couple of shows at the PAC, Broadway shows. One was a new edition of a show, and they wanted to create new sets. I'm talking about Broadway people in New York. They wanted to create new sets and new dances and that sort of thing. So they hired the musicians for 8 days, and we were right there on site with everybody for 8 days. And then a couple months later, we did Wicked, which was the longest run that the PAC has ever done for a Broadway show. And we were together for 3 weeks. And in the process of the musicians being together, we were saying, wouldn't it be nice if we played together year-round? So that's how I had the idea. And it was immediately embraced by the mayor. I think I was just at the right time to ask the question, because the city had done all this dynamic economic growth and building and was positioned to be ready to have their own arts organization to represent the city.
That's so cool.
Entertainment.
Yeah, I think that's just awesome. And the other thing that's really fabulous about it is, to this day, our North Charleston Pops musicians are the ones that perform in the pit when these Broadway shows come and they need a pit orchestra. So that's really a great opportunity for our people to be able to perform, and for the audience to hear us in other ways, not just on the stage of the PAC when we do our regular concerts.
That's very true. Some of the shows that are memorable to me that we did after that were Phantom of the Opera, and we do Mannheim Steamroller every December. And then we did The Legend of Zelda on the stage, and the orchestra just loves getting together and doing these sorts of things. Another concert we did, which was quite interesting, as George Benson came for a jazz festival.
Yeah.
And he was doing a concert and needed an orchestra. So the North Charleston Pops backed up his show. And he, after the rehearsal, was just amazed at the attitude of the musicians. And at the end of the concert, he said, "What's with this orchestra? Everybody is having a good time. They're not looking at their watch to see when the gig is going to be over. They're really into the music." And then he stayed another hour after the show just talking to the musicians. And it was really a validation of what we've created with the North Charleston Pops. Because as you know, being our music director, we have a specific culture for the orchestra, which is everybody has to love being there, love having a good time, and be respectful to each other and engage the audience. And so,
that's right.
Yes.
And so, there's so many elements to a performance. And, you know, from the audience standpoint, if they see that the musicians are having a blast and really getting into it and all of that, I think that that really enhances their enjoyment of the overall concert. And that's not always the case, as you and I both know, from working in other places where sometimes musicians look like they'd rather be at the dentist office, you know? Sure.
It's a good analogy, but you're right. You had mentioned in the intro that I play with various orchestras, and I have done that my entire career. And I have never seen this kind of culture in an orchestra in my life. For some, it's just a job, and a lot of musicians don't even talk to each other. In the North Charleston Pops, everybody's friendly, they care about each other, they're respectful to you. And that brings back the history of the Pops, to talk a little bit more about that, because you didn't start till our 4th season, I believe. So the first 2 years, Jeff Reed was our conductor, and he did a great job of getting the Pops established. And but I just felt like he wasn't a good mix with the orchestra, because he didn't like to travel, and he didn't live here. So I had a year of guest conductors, and you were one of those guest conductors, so we could find a new conductor. And the reason I ask you is I had worked with you in another orchestra. You were a guest conductor there, and I believe it was Candide that you conducted. And
That's
I
right.
was so impressed, not only with your style on the podium and your good use of rehearsal time, but you were also so kind and nice. And then I actually talked to you in the lobby, and you were just so friendly. And I thought, this is the kind of well-rounded music director we need here in North Charleston, somebody that's friendly, that people like. A lot of people think that the job is just on the podium. It's not. There's so much more involved behind the scenes, not only developing
That's true.
a good rapport, but finding sponsors and letting people know that we do care about them. I wanted this orchestra to be an orchestra that gives back to the community, not an orchestra that takes from the community. And you were just,
and I think that's the way it's always been too. Yeah, I mean, it's great because we have so many musicians in the orchestra, and we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, in a little bit, but who are so involved in the educational programs that we put into these schools in North Charleston, and they just love teaching and love making such a difference in the lives of young people, and that's another part of it. But you're right. I mean, it's fun when we're in a rehearsal because everyone knows everybody else, and they know their significant other and children, and they know a lot about them, and everyone wants to know how people are doing. And I know it's fun at the end of the concert. Everyone wants to get pictures of different groups of people from the orchestra together, because everyone dresses up in such beautiful clothes. I mean, women just wear the most beautiful gowns, and the guys have the great different color bow ties, and I mean, it's fun. It's all about having a good time.
Talking about that, when we switched over to going from basic black to having colorful attire, I was thinking that we're in the entertainment business. And why do women have to be in drab black all the time? And why do men have to have all black in their bow tie and cummerbund? And so we decided to try this, and it just caught right on. I have to tell you, this is kind of funny. You would not know this being a man, but in the dressing room, the ladies' dressing room, it's like prom night. The musicians are curling their hair and putting on their makeup and helping each other, like lace up the back of their gowns, and it's so fun. And then taking pictures together. So you'll see here a picture of some of the ladies posing for a picture after they get all ready. So we take great pride in being in the entertainment business. But another element of this, which is, I think, amazing, is our stage crew. The stage crew is a part of the orchestra. We're not just musicians. It's a whole package, the lighting, the sound. And I've totally given them license to develop whatever they want based on the theme of the show. So all that fabulous lighting, and you'll see some pictures here of the fabulous lighting, is created by the staff, and they do it on their own. I don't tell them what to do, but they're pros at it because they handle all these Broadway shows anyway. And the same with the sound guys. They do just a fabulous job miking us and making sure the balance is correct. So it's a whole...
And we all get along. We just definitely get along so well, and they're very respectful of us, and the musicians are very respectful of them. And again, that's another culture thing, which is not always the way it is in halls, in big cities. People sometimes on the stage could care less about who's working there, but not the case with our people. And the musicians know the names of the people that are working for us, and we're, and again, we're like family, and we have the same people every time, and we really respect what they're doing and appreciate what they're doing, just like they appreciate and respect what we're doing. So it's a great symbiotic relationship.
Well, they're artists at what they do. I mean, I would not know how to do lighting or sound, and it's an art, and they are artists at it.
They are. Now, let me ask you, because people are curious. They know that you play the flute, and you played the flute for your entire life. First, let's talk about the other hat that you wear, and that's the administrative one. It's not something you just started doing when you came to the Pops. You had done some of this before. You had a little bit of a history, so when you came to the Pops, it wasn't something completely new for you.
Well, actually, it was. As far as orchestra management, but I have to say, my husband has been in orchestra management his entire life, and so I've sort of learned by observation.
Right.
But I have had leadership roles. For example, the Charleston Symphony does designer show houses each year for fundraisers, and I was the chairperson for 4 of those show houses, and I also was president of the Symphony League. And in that
that's
process,
a big job.
It is a big job. And in that process, I really learned how to manage people. And I think the most important thing I knew and employed was that if you give people the freedom to do what they do well, they're going to excel at it. If you micromanage, you've got a lot of work put on yourself, but also the end product is not as good as it could be. So like I just mentioned with the stage crew, I carried that over to the stage crew. With the musicians, for example, I don't have to tell them when the break is over. They know how to keep time. And so they're just ready, and they're on stage, ready to go at the end of breaks, and they're there on the stage ready to go when it's time to do the show. Those skills have been very helpful to me, but I have to say my husband has been a tremendous help because he does our grant writing for us, and if I ever need advice, he's certainly there to help out with that. And he does the contracts for our guest artists because he's been booking with arts managements all his life, so he knows how to negotiate really great fees, and we're able to do that also because we're in the Charleston region and people love to come here for vacation, even
That's
artists.
Right.
Yeah, so we can get our guest artists sometimes to come here for maybe even half the amount they would normally charge just because they consider it a paid vacation.
That's right. And Daryl is such an amazing guy and has had so much experience with so many different orchestras, but he's so humble. And, he'll show up at rehearsal and just sit in the audience, and if we need a little help listening to the balance or whatever, something happens backstage, he's just there to help out. And he's so matter of fact about it. He's just a terrific person, and the musicians love him, and he's just such a great guy. And I can see through the years in the different places that you all have lived that you've really gained a lot of experience, not just as a player, but learning how to get along with musicians and with others, and especially working in guilds and the kind of things you did with the Charleston Symphony. That really takes people skills, which you have a lot of.
Yes, and I thank you for saying that about Daryl. Most of our audience knows him from handing out Tootsie Pops, I think. But he works the front of the house. That's what we call it. The lobby is called the front of the house, and backstage is the back of the house. And so I'm working the back of the house while he's working the front of the house for concerts. And that relationship with the audience is so important, and that's part of what we try to do too, is make the lobby experience fun. So we have various sometimes silly things like playing cornhole game in the lobby, or taking pictures, or having musical entertainment, putting golf, whatever. So we try to do various things, and also we sometimes feature other arts organizations in the lobby so that they can get exposure. That's part of our mission, is to promote other philanthropic organizations. The second half of our big mission, besides giving concerts, is our Pops Kids education program.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
well, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when we first started the Pops, as I mentioned, I wanted to be an orchestra that gives back to the community. And the North Charleston area, as far as the school district is concerned, is sort of neglected. And they don't get the funding that they need because the situation is so dire. I discovered there's no band in North Charleston schools. That's just insane. And there's just a few schools that even have a string program. So we decided to start a after-school program so we could break down this ongoing bad situation and provide opportunities to these children that could not afford it otherwise or don't have it in the school. And so we did find a principal to start out with, which is Dr. Chevelle at Hersey Elementary School. It's a Montessori school. And he agreed to allow us to come in after school. And through the Kaleidoscope program, we're able to provide lessons and an orchestra ensemble, and also instruments for the children if they can't afford to have their own. And then in conjunction with doing that, we had to have instruments. So we took a year first to get instruments donated. So some of our sponsors, starting with Stokes VW and Travis Westbury, who was there at the time, we started an instrument donation program. So any of the Stokes dealerships, you can drop off an instrument, and then they get in touch with me to let me know it's there, and I come pick it up. And people can get a tax write-off for that donation. What surprised me was people don't want to part with their instruments. They have a sentimental value. But then when they see what we're doing, they think, well, my instrument would be better being used than sitting in a closet. The memories are already there. So we did amass instruments, and then we got funding from Boeing, which is our season sponsor. Actually, that was one of my pride and joys, is to finally get Boeing as a sponsor, which happened, I think, in our third year. Maybe it was our fourth year, but they have been wonderful. And then they gave us a grant to get more instruments for the children because they really love what we're doing with the children. And we're seeing results already, because one of the reasons we did this is the mayor had said to me, I have to provide the funding for security for the School of the Arts. It's in the heart of North Charleston, but none of my kids can get in the school. Well, since we started this program, we've had the second year of the Pops Kids program, one of the kids got in the school. The next year, 2. The next year, 3. And this year, we have 4 children that have made it to the School of the Arts.
That's great. Yeah,
so we know
amazing
this
record.
Is working. And we expanded to other schools, but it's been a little frustrating because you can only do this if the principal of the school is willing to cooperate.
Right.
You can only do it with principals who understand the value of arts education in children's lives. And you and I know it's probably the most important tool that a child can be given. Even though they never become musicians, it just develops the brain. Sure. It connects all 4 quadrants of the brain and improves their academic scores. And we know this from research and from proven studies. But to get administrators to understand this is a whole different story. But we prevail because we're having such great success with these children, and we really have dedicated teaching from some of the members of the North Charleston Pops. And I'd like to commend Samantha Clark, who is actually the strings teacher in North Charleston that started this whole thing for us. And she coordinates all the schools and the teachers for us as well.
She's amazing.
Yes, she is. So that's been a source of pride and joy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun to work with the kids when they have that opportunity to perform with us on stage, and performances, which they do every year, either the string orchestra or the chorus. And just to see them light up when they come on that stage and see all those folks in the audience, and it's great. And I want to now touch on another subject, but before I do that, I want to back up and say that everything that we do is all about having a good time and all about taking the whole ivory tower snob thing out of the orchestra. This is not what we're about. We're about fun, casual music that is entertaining and all of that. And that's, when you mentioned about the lobby activities with Daryl and just, the way we welcome people as friends is huge. Now, tell us a little bit about some of the highlights of your career as an as a flute performer? Because I know there have been some real amazing things that you've done.
Oh, wow. I played in lots of orchestras. I started my career, my professional career, in the Hudson Valley Philharmonic up in Poughkeepsie, New York. My husband, Daryl, was in the West Point Band at the time, so that brought us to that region. And then, because he's in orchestra management, we have moved around the country, and each city we've lived in played with the orchestras there, starting with the Columbus Symphony in Ohio. And then in Texas, we went to Dallas, and I played in the Richardson Symphony and the East Tyler Symphony. If people don't understand the symphony business, you can only play if there's an opening, and there's not an opening. So the next best thing is to befriend the flute section, because they're the one that recommend somebody when there's a substitute needed. And then you have to audition for a sub list. So I've been very successful at being able to play with these various orchestras. And then when we moved to Buffalo, New York, and this is great, a story. I rarely played the piccolo because I'm a good flute player. And when we went to the Buffalo Philharmonic, the piccolo player there was really good at taking all 35 days of his sick leave, and he would do it like the day of a concert, never for the day of a concert, so he could play other gigs like in New York or wherever. And so I would have to come in and sight read concerts with the Buffalo Philharmonic on the piccolo. And so that was a great experience. There were some pieces that I had never played in the piccolo repertoire, and here I was sight reading it on concerts. But I happen to be a good sight reader, fortunately. So that paid off, and it helped me get into the piccolo realm, which helped me with the Charleston Symphony, because when we came to Charleston, they needed a piccolo player. And I played, I had to play audition to be a sub, and then I had to play another audition for the opening, and a third audition because people were upset I was the manager's wife and I was being allowed to play. So I
of course.
Audition. And so at that point, I became the piccolo player with the Charleston Symphony, and have been. That was in 1993, and I still am the piccolo player with the Charleston Symphony. In the process of living in Charleston, I teach at the College of Charleston until this last year. I just retired because I was there for 27 years. And I just needed more time to pursue the North Charleston Pops, just because it's making such a huge difference in the community and people's lives. And so I'd done the teaching for so many years, I decided to retire. But I was there for 27 years, and I made a recording with the guitarist there, Mark Renier, and it was nominated for a Grammy. And so I got to go to the Grammys.
That's really cool.
Los Angeles, and that was just such a fun experience. And my daughter wanted to go with us, so she came with us. And so it's kind of funny. We were staying in the hotel right across the street from where the Grammys are held, and everybody is looking at everybody else like, who are they? Are they someone famous? Yeah. Especially when we're in our evening gowns. And so we get to walk on the red carpet and go and see how that TV show is put together. It's a very fascinating experience to watch that.
I'm sure.
It was just a great experience. And now I can always say that I'm a Grammy nominee.
That's pretty cool. That's very impressive. Now, you also toured with the Sousa Band, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm the piccolo player with the Sousa Band, which is started by Keith Bryan, and is based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we've traveled all over the world to play, including a tour in China. And that's where I met our principal bassoonist, Sue Barber, with the Pops. She's also in the Sousa Band, and I just really loved her playing. And she had that culture. She had that attitude about just loving playing music. So she travels down from Virginia, actually, to play with us on our concerts.
So we have musicians from all over the region, as far away as Virginia, and you know, I mean, people that drive really long distances because they want to come play.
That's true, but it wasn't that way the first couple of years because we were a new orchestra and the musicians were like, what is this group? But the word started getting out in the musician network and now people want to play with us. But I would like to say that the majority of our musicians live right here in Charleston. We take a great pride in giving employment to our musicians here. We have so much talent in the Charleston area. So we just import those instruments that are kind of unusual, like bassoon. Or where we need somebody that's really good in diversity, like our principal trumpet, who can play just all styles of music, and our concert master, who's fabulous. It lives in Atlanta.
Right, and that's one of the things about all the musicians, I think, is their ability to play so many different styles. I mean, we have done everything from country western to jazz to, you know, Dixieland, Broadway, classical repertory. And, you know, in order to be able to do all of those things well with a smile, it really takes a great musician.
It does. And we have 56 great musicians in our orchestra and are really proud of it. And I know the city of North Charleston is very proud of it. It's been interesting to watch a transformation. People have such great pride in having this gem of an orchestra in the city of North Charleston. And speaking of that, the Performing Arts Center is working really hard to open the doors back up for live concerts. And so they're putting all these safety measures in place. And I think we're going to be the debut concert on July 18th. So we're looking forward to that, being there in the concert hall and inviting people back in.
And I think that that's really significant. And because of the relationship that we have with the Performing Arts Center and the trust that we have in them, and we know that they're going to take every precaution possible and know exactly what to do to make everyone who comes to the concert safe. That's the most crucial part. We can take care of making musicians safe, but we know we can trust them. And that's not true with a lot of halls that you perform in, but the professionalism of the people that work there is such that we really feel that we can put our complete trust in them, and that the patrons can feel that everything's going to be okay. And I think, too, everyone is dying to get back to hear live music. And when that day comes, that's going to be an exciting time.
It is, and it will be soon. I always think positive. In fact, when I started this orchestra, I'm like, what am I doing starting an orchestra? And I just trusted that it was the right thing to do. And that's the kind of attitude I have with everything I do in my life. I'm a very positive person. I'm a can-do person. I'm also a workaholic. And so all of those things come into play to make this a success.
Right. Yes, and you've done such a terrific job with the Pops. It's a wonderful place for all of us who are musical to work and to have fun, and to, you know, to have an environment that's free of stress and free of you know, bad vibes. You know, it's a really fun place to go. I always look forward to every concert and to every rehearsal and to seeing my friends in the orchestra again. It's a wonderful thing. Well, thanks for being our first guest on the Happy Hour with the Maestro show. It was great to have you be here, and we look forward to having you again. We'll have to find another topic we can discuss with you. But for everyone else, we're really excited about this new program, and we hope that you will have an opportunity to unwind with the Maestro regularly. Thanks for joining us.